Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. It is presented by us, RotoWire. Our sponsors have officially had enough of Ken and Shannon. They're off the podcast forever. All of our sponsors have been dropped. This is now an independent podcast. If you like this podcast, head over to rotowire.com/pod. You can see at the bottom of the screen if you're watching on video for a free look behind our paywall. You get like a 7-day trial, I think, of our premium features. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you like the pod, subscribe wherever it is that you listen. It is February 22nd, 2024 today. We're coming off of our first slate of games following the All-Star break, and I'm joined by Kieran Sprecher for the first time making his podcast debut. He is one of our NBA editors, which doesn't mean anything to anybody because they don't know what you do, but I will say this. If you've read a single NBA news update on RotoWire in the past 2 years, it's like a 1 in 5 chance Kieran wrote it. You have, I don't know if you know this, where you can find this on the NBA on our RotoWire internal database. You have 11,700 NBA notes to your name, which is the 6th most in company history. And you're doing a lot more behind the scenes than that. So I'm happy to have him on the podcast today. How are you doing, Kieran?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Alex. That was a great introduction. I used to be more aware of the number of notes I had written earlier in my career, and now that I'm an editor, I check it like once a year. But I think I'm still like I need like 10,000 more to even crack like the top 5. So that 6th spot's going to be there for a long time. But hopefully, a couple more years, and I'll get to that 20,000 mark.
Yeah, I'm right behind Nick. I think I need like 100 to pass Nick. I should just make like an end of the year effort just to get ahead of him. But this got me down a rabbit hole the other day when I was looking this up. Between Nick Whalen, who people who listen to this pod know who that is, Kieran, me, and Jason Shabilsky, one of our other NBA editors, the 4 of us have written more than 15% of RotoWire's NBA notes since the dawn of mankind. Not just this year, but since the company was founded in 1997, we are responsible for 15% of the notes written, which is crazy. I can't even believe that. But I want to jump in. I promise everybody who listens to the pod, this will be the last time that we talk about All-Star festivities. I feel like you get like a week buffer and then it's over. So I have 3 questions for you, Kieran. 1, do you like All-Star Weekend? Because apparently this is a controversial topic. Some people just hate it. 2, did you like this All-Star Weekend? And 3, is there anything, if you did not like All-Star Weekend, maybe even if you did, is there anything you would change about All-Star Weekend?
I do like the All-Star Weekend. It's not my favorite event. I always tune in for at least some of the events. Rising Stars Challenge, 3-point contest. I always give the dunk contest at least a little bit of a chance and see where it goes. The All-Star game itself, it's always fun to watch for the first few quarters. Watching guys chuck from deep, Damian Lillard hitting half-court shots, that's always fun to watch. But then when it starts getting into 20-point game and there's going to be no competition at the end, I kind of tune out. So I do like it. I did like this one. I didn't necessarily like the All-Star game itself that much this year. I tuned out halfway through the third quarter when the league got big. I really enjoyed Sabrina versus Steph. I hope they do more of that. I really like the Rising All-Stars or the Rising Stars format. That was super fun. Mathurin and Ivy going at each other and getting all of those young players like incorporated and playing on a stage like that's really fun. You see Mathurin like really shine in that moment. There was a funny bit with Halliburton and Miles Turner and Mathurin. They won the skills competition or whatever as a team. And Halliburton's like, team, we're a good team. We're the Pacers. This was fun. And in Indiana to win this thing, it was the highlight of my week. He's like, I'm not sure about Benedict because obviously he got the MVP of the Rising Stars, and that's more of an individual thing. So I like that. Mathurin getting to show his star power if he ever gets a chance to do that. If there was one thing I would change, I think the 3-point contest is the golden nugget of the weekend, right? And that should be the final thing. It should come after the dunk contest. I feel like the 3-point contest happened, Sabrina versus Steph, and then the dunk contest, and all of the air got let out of the balloon. So that's like one minor tweak, but overall, I'm not like that big of a cynic. I do understand why people like tune out of the All-Star game. I feel like a lot of the hatred towards it comes from bettors, sadly, who are like, I'm going to bet on the All-Star game, and then they're watching like, what's happening? This is terrible. And so like, don't bet on the All-Star game maybe. But
Nick was talking to me about, he bet the All-Star game and he was like, I'm never doing this again. But he bet, I think he hit a couple on threes overs. I'm like, that's the move. If you're going to bet the All-Star game, bet on everybody to go over their 3-pointers because everyone just gets up to half court and just chucks it. But yeah, I agree with you on the 3-point contest. I mean, I love the dunk contest. Dunk contest is my favorite event. It always has been. I love the creativity. It's a lot of fun. It's worth all the bad dunks to get like one dunk you've never seen before. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it might serve better as a warm-up to the 3-point contest. I agree with your take about the Rising Stars. Rising Stars has become almost more fun than the actual All-Star game. But yeah, I remember last year when I was watching the All-Star game, I was sitting on my couch and I just found myself like scrolling my phone for most of the game, not even like that engaged. This year I checked the highlights. So, yeah, as on the NBA app as it was happening. So yeah, it was fine. But let's get into some real NBA news. We have unfortunate news for everybody who has been rostering Onyeka Okongwu waiting for a breakout all season. Not only did Clint Capella not get traded, we have Okongwu out for the, quote, foreseeable future now. I guess my question is, do you think we're basically just going to get a variation of what we saw when Clint Capella was out? Because Capella was out before the All-Star break. We saw some more Bruno Fernando for like 10 to 18 minutes. Okongwu was playing 30 minutes, and then Jalen Johnson would get some minutes at small ball 5. Do you think the same thing is basically going to happen with Okongwu out? Capella plays more? I guess my follow-up to that in a way is like, can Capella even handle 30 minutes a game at this point for the rest of the season?
Yeah, we've been waiting for the Okongwu breakout for years, it feels like, but it hasn't come quite yet. He was budding, but it's sad to see him go down. For what the Hawks rotation is going to look like, I think obviously it's safe to expect more of the same. I do think that DeAndre Hunter's presence will be a big factor here. He was also out when Capella was, or when Okongwu was out earlier in the season. So if you can run out Jalen Johnson at the small ball 5 more often, and then you have Hunter and Bay at the 2 forward spots, that's still a small lineup, but I feel like that gives them a lot of size in the front court at least to like combat that. And plus, I feel like that's just like the highest upside front court that they can throw out there. So I would personally like to see that. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen or that's what I'm predicting what's going to happen. It's a safe bet to assume Fernando's going to get that 15 minutes per game sort of deal. I would like to see him more closer to 10 with Bay and Hunter and Johnson all 30 plus. But that would be the most advantageous for fantasy managers, obviously, because Bay and Hunter and Johnson are all rostered in a lot of leagues. That's what I would hope and like expect out of Atlanta, but realistically, we're probably going to see a lot of Fernando, which reduces the fantasy value of all of those guys I mentioned.
Yeah, Fernando might be worth adding if you're in like a super deep league. I'll have to double check on Atlanta's schedule to see if they have, I'm pulling it up right now. They only have 3 games this next week, so it's not like a great streaming opportunity. DeAndre Hunter, who you mentioned, had good back-to-back games, 20 points in back-to-back, but only played 28 minutes in each. So yeah, this may be a situation where it's just bad for everybody. Like it's just bad for Okongwu if you're rostering him. I guess it's good if you have Capella. But speaking of big men, Isaiah Stewart suspended 3 games due to an altercation with Drew Eubanks that he had. I think it was in the parking lot. I don't exactly remember. They dropped the charges, but the league still suspended. It has suspended Stewart for 3 games. Pistons did not play yesterday, so that is upcoming. Stewart hasn't played since January 28th, has not played in February, so this is mostly just like annoying if you're rostering him. But it's a good chance to talk about the Pistons because he will return eventually, very soon. And so how do you think his presence when he comes back into the rotation is going to affect how the Pistons look post-deadline?
Totally. Real quick, my little conspiracy theory is maybe Isaiah Stewart would have missed even more games with this ankle injury, and they just kind of boosted him to questionable and kind of nudged the NBA to be like, hey, he's going to be playing soon, so you might want to suspend him. So they might just totally get away with him still being injured and then having to serve the suspension. I have no sources on that. That's totally conspiracy theory. Isaiah Stewart's a solid player. Him moving to the 4 with Jalen Duren there has opened up more 3-point opportunities, but then has reduced his blocks. So he's still kind of like stagnant as a fantasy option. As for how the rotation will look, don't get me started on Monty Williams, man. I had a lot of faith in him turning around Detroit. I gave him a lot of credit for what happened in Phoenix. And then, we won't get into all of that. And I still had high hopes for him. This season has been a huge disappointment all across the board. He recently said, I'm done with prioritizing development and we're going to win now. And then in the first game following the All-Star break, he benched Cade Cunningham in the first quarter and they proceeded to go down by 30. If you're trying to win now, you got to play your best players, man. And then Cade comes back in the second half and they make it kind of respectable or whatever. And I get he's trying to make a point like, we're going to win now. I'm benching my best player. Everyone. But then you're bringing in Marcus. I like Marcus Sasser too, but like you're bringing in these guys off the bench and it's just not it's not Cade Cunningham. I'm not saying he's an MVP candidate or anything, but he's your best player and he's going to give you the best chance to win games. And he showed that when he got an opportunity. So Monty Williams saying like whatever he says to the media, you can't take it. You got to take it with a grain of salt. Fontecchio has been playing really well at the 4. Obviously, he's probably the one that moves to the bench when Stewart comes back. Then they also added guys like Fournier at the deadline that add shooting that they haven't had. I think Thompson still gets like I don't think he gets pushed out of the rotation completely when Stewart comes back. He's been playing really well. And as Monty Williams says, we're not going for development anymore. We probably should be at this point. So I'm not really sure what any of that means. I would just probably stay away from all Pistons outside of Cunningham, Ivy, and Duren. Those guys are pretty solid right now. You can trust them. Outside of that, yikes. It's going to be ugly. Stewart coming back probably has the biggest impact on Fontecchio, who was probably being picked up in deeper leagues around this point of the season because of his 3-point shooting and the minutes that he's played since being traded there. But
yeah, Fontecchio is a good streamer. Good streamer for a lot of the season. Yeah, I was looking through their recent rotation. Clearly, they are trying to win because they're playing veteran Evan Fournier, proven winner. So I think when Stewart comes back, yes, Fontecchio could move to the bench. But if you look at the team's average minutes over the past, like, let's just say 3 games, basically, you got, again, like 18 to 20 minutes for Fournier sitting there. Shake Milton's been playing like 10 to 15 minutes. Troy Brown's been getting minutes. Muscala. It's like, I think these guys can all just get their minutes cut. Stewart can come in for 30 minutes and all the guys that we want to play will play for the most part. But yeah, make sure if you're rostering anybody from the Pistons, just to keep an eye on what happens when Isaiah Stewart does come back. Before we move on to our next news item, I do want to say thank you for all the questions in the chat, everybody. We will get to those in about 5-10 minutes. We'll do a quick questions. We'll hit questions and then we'll go to waiver wire after that. We also got some more news from the Memphis Grizzlies, their MASH unit. Desmond Bane likely out until mid to late March is the latest update. And then Marcus Smart will be reevaluated in 3 weeks, that being March 27th. I respect that Bane really wants to come back. He shouldn't. He should not come back. It doesn't make any sense. I think the only argument, because you don't want to get him hurt for next year, right? I mean, forget this year, but just like they're going to be competitive next year. Don't get him hurt for next year. I think the only argument for like wanting to bring Bane back is Memphis might be basically locked into their draft spot where the potential win-loss change of Bane playing versus not, I don't think it matters that much because right now they have 20 wins, the Grizzlies do. Toronto also has 20 wins. They're tied for the 6th worst record with Memphis. But Toronto owes their pick to the Spurs if it's 7 or farther out, which I could not believe they gave up this 1-6 protected pick for Jakob Poeltl. Insane. But then way below Memphis is Portland with 15 wins. You're not getting there. Charlotte is 14. You're not reaching Portland or Charlotte with 15 wins. Like, those guys are going to outlose you the rest of the way. Brooklyn has 21 wins, but they owe their pick to Houston. So they have no incentive to tank. Houston has 24 wins, but they owe their pick to OKC. So they're trying to win too. Atlanta also has 24 wins. So that's like the only team. Long story short, people love to listen to me rattle off standings over audio. They love that. Long story short, what if you're a fantasy manager, you roster somebody in the Grizzlies, you roster Bane, you roster any of these guys who have emerged for the Grizzlies. What does this update mean to you?
Pretty much what we expected from the beginning, right? If they're going to come back, they're going to come back in the final weeks of the regular season. However, even if they do come back, they might be limited, because why would you want to risk 2 of your better players that could be key players on a competitive team next year? Also, they just might never come back, and the deadline or the return date might keep getting pushed back. As a fantasy manager, I mean, if you have them, like if you are rostering them and you have access to an IR spot, you probably already have them in those slots and you can keep them there, without any risk. If you have another, so say you have like Julius Randle and Desmond Bane, I'm probably dropping Desmond Bane with hoping Julius Randle comes back before Desmond Bane. I don't really know if there is really anything, any like other examples like that don't really come to mind. I'm totally content keeping these 2 guys in the IR spot, hoping that they come back for maybe like a fantasy postseason run. But I wouldn't be expecting that. And if you need access to that IR spot, you probably can drop these guys if you're trying to make a push for the playoffs. If you're a contending team and you're like, I'm going to make the playoffs, you can probably still hold them. But if you're like, I need to win these next couple of weeks, or I need to move up in the standings, you probably can move on.
Yeah, you mentioned Julius Randle there. We had a question in the chat. Jay Hang 20. What to do with Randle? Is he even tradable? I don't think he's tradable.
No.
I think you should hang on. I mean, the hope is that he can maybe come back in early to mid-March, but we just haven't gotten great updates yet. He hasn't resumed basketball activities. So I think optimistically you'd probably be looking at mid-March.
Yeah.
It's tough to say. I would just hang on. I would just hang on in your IR. It's too, he could come back too soon for you to be worth dropping him. That's a tough question. All right, 2 final news notes before we quickly get to questions. Kyle Lowry made his 76ers debut last night. Gordon Hayward made his Thunder debut. Lowry's was much better. Played 25 minutes, 5 of 7 shooting for 11 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. Took minutes away from Campaign, a little bit from Buddy Hield, who was playing like 40 minutes a game. That was absurd. Gordon Hayward for the Thunder played 14 minutes, but was horrible. 0 points and 0 for 2 shooting, 4 rebounds. Interestingly, we saw Jalen Williams, the big, was a DNP CD with Gordon Hayward in the lineup. So something I was not expecting to happen there. Eddie, I mean, do you have any takeaways from that, from either of those situations?
Kyle Lowry was playing, man. That 25 minutes is a lot. He was really efficient from the field. Obviously his shooting comes and goes. With Joel Embiid out, the Sixers are going to need all hands on deck, and he's arguably one of their best players at this point. I'm not condoning picking him up off waivers yet. I still like Maxey and Hield and Harris and Oubre to kind of like lead this offense. But the hometown kid is going to get a lot of minutes down this stretch run until Embiid comes back, and they are struggling, and they're going to need all of the veteran experience they can get. So keep an eye on Lowry. I'm not ready to pull the trigger off of one like mediocre performance, but it was a good first game for him for sure. Hayward offensively, he hasn't played in a long time. There's a lot of rust. I was impressed with his defensive ability. He was moving around well. He looked fluid. He fits that system well. I was also surprised that Jalen Williams was the one out of the rotation. I think, hold on, let me check quick. I think Yeah, sorry, I lost it.
You're good.
I think Giddey also played fewer minutes. Yeah, Giddey played only 23 minutes. That's kind of been like his role. Jalen Williams is really the only one like majorly infected by that, by Hayward's presence. I assume he's going to be getting more towards that 20-minute mark as he gets more acclimated to his new team. I will stay away from Hayward for now, but keep an eye on Lowry.
Yeah. But D'Anthony Melton allegedly is going to come back soon. That's going to maybe affect his minutes. Hayward, I think he was just getting acclimated to the offense. You mentioned it. He hadn't played in a while, so I won't be surprised. I still believe he's going to be 20 to 30 minutes a game when he's fully like integrated. But yeah, you don't want to. Not an encouraging performance.
No.
We also had final news item here. Jordan Poole came off the bench last night. Interim head coach Brian Keefe said, it's really a positive. It's actually a credit to Jordan. Jordan's been one of the highest net ratings since I've taken over, and I want to see more of that. This gives him an opportunity now, being in that unit, to be the lead handler, lead decision maker, and kind of be our offensive engine. That is true. I'm just not sure. It's just crazy to me. We're benching him. That's great. That's good. He's playing so well that we had to bench him. He's too good for the starting lineup. That's the problem. Anyway, Bilal Coulibaly started for him last night. Poole, if you're in a points league, you're not that mad about this performance, but in a category league, he did shoot 4 of 17 for 18 points. Coulibaly didn't do much, 4 points in 32 minutes. Does this really change anything for you, or is this just maybe more shot volume for Poole? Minutes are basically the same. What do you think?
Yeah, I think minutes are going to stay the same. He still played 30. The shot attempts might not be a great thing if you're in category leagues. Like, that might be even worse than what he was doing before. I still like Jordan Poole as a player. I hope he can turn it around. It's a mindset thing, I think, for me. He's got all the skills. Washington, Kyle Kuzma is really the only one that we need to care about there for now. Poole has had success off the bench, though. Some of his best games during his Warriors tenure came off the bench. So I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of finds a groove with the second unit, kind of like a show, like, you got benched, so now you got to show me. And he kind of plays well in that role sometimes. So we'll see. Don't have the highest expectations, but points league, I'm still probably rolling with him with the shot attempts. But category leagues, if I don't trust that field goal percentage at all.
No, and if you're looking to stream anybody from the Wizards, they only have 3 games next week. Not ideal. I mentioned Kispert, on the pod last week, playing well. Same with Avdia, although Avdia just had 5 points after he scored a career high, so that's a classic move. But yeah, let's get to some of these listener questions. You got a ton of them in the chat. We'll try to get to all of them, but we don't want to run too long, so apologies if we don't get to yours. Ian has concerns about DeAndre Ayton. He's in a 9-cat, 16-team league. Would you trade him? Would you hold him? If trade, what range? Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be weary of anybody on a team like, Portland or Charlotte or like any of these bottom feeder teams. Any guys like Ayton. Ayton's not really a veteran. I guess that's the only saving grace here, right? Ayton's not really a veteran. I don't know, Kieran, if you had Ayton on a team, I don't know if you do. Are you trying to move off of him?
I do not have Ayton on any teams. I probably am not. I would send out some feelers. But I don't know really like what kind of reception you're going to get from your league mates. Before taking away his dud in the final game before the All-Star break, he was averaging 19 points, 11 rebounds, and 1 block over his last 9 appearances. It appeared in 9 of the last 10 games. That's pretty solid production. I don't think anyone's going to like trade you a guy that's going to like match that production. So I feel like there's a hold unless you get like a great offer. There is definitely concerns about the shutdown, and your league mates are probably concerned about that too. So it all depends on what kind of return you can get. If you're going to trade him for like a GG Jackson, it just doesn't seem like an advantageous move, like on either side. I don't I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh, I want to get Ayton and overpay for him. So I think you just roll with the production he's giving you.
Right. In leagues where you're punting turnovers, he's ranked 59th on the season and actually 24th over the past month. If you can get a top 60 player for him, that's fine. That's fine if you have more confidence in somebody, but I wouldn't be freaking out to move off of him. He's 25 years old. Maybe they'll actually try to feature him more down the stretch. It's a bit of a risk reward play, but that's a good question. Thoughts on Isaiah Hartenstein? Is Mitchell Robinson coming back? Hartenstein had been dealing with an Achilles injury, had missed a handful of 3 games before the break, just came back last night, played 11 minutes. They're going to be careful with Achilles injuries, right? So do I have concerns? I have mild concerns, but he also reached 30 minutes before. Is Mitchell Robinson coming back? I would guess probably not before the fantasy season is over. I will say, because it's an Achilles injury, I would sell high if you can, if anybody's willing to trade for somebody who's just played 11 minutes off of an Achilles injury. But I wouldn't worry about Mitchell Robinson at the very least.
I would totally agree with that. Hartenstein has been a darling after Robinson's gone down. The 11 minutes off the Achilles injury, there wasn't any reported setback, so I'm not too concerned with that. Paul Reed also played only 22 minutes with the Sixers running out a small ball lineup most of the game. So the Knicks kind of probably were just like, hey, we don't need to push Hartenstein. We'll just run Precious or Toppin or Jericho Sims out there at the 5. So I'm still like holding on that 11 minutes wasn't like he suffered a setback or he's only going to be playing 15 minutes for the next week. And it was just kind of like the style of that game.
Yeah, we've gotten this question a lot. Is Embiid a safe drop in a playoff schedule week 22, 23, 24? I saw this question, and believe it or not, I did the prep work. Week 22 begins March 25th, and right now we have Joel Embiid's estimated return date based off of reporting as April 2nd. So that would be the early portion of his return date. So if I'm you and my playoffs start March 25th, they go April 1st, and then their final playoff week, if you get to the finals, is April 8th through the 14th. Even if Embiid comes back, let's say he comes back April 8th, is he going to be playing 30 minutes a game? Is he going to be playing? I don't know what their back-to-back schedule is like. I apologize for not having that off the top of my head, but I would not. I don't think you'll lose your league if you drop Embiid. That's what I'll say. I think at some point you just need to get production.
I totally agree. The only caveat that I have is the Sixers are 2 games away from falling to the 8th seed. After that, there's a big, like the play-in tournament. They're just going to be stuck in the play-in tournament. That's the way it's trending now. I don't feel like they would, if they're falling in that direction, I don't think they rush Embiid back to be like, let's get the 6th seed or, so I think he's a safe drop. You got to get production eventually. If you're trying to make the playoffs, you're trying to win. Holding on to Embiid does nothing for you at this point. When he does come back, he's probably going to be limited. And they're not locked into the play-in spot, but they're essentially locked into the play-in spot. So there's no reason for him to come back like early to make it that big of a difference.
Glenn says, should I pick up Gordon Hayward? He just dropped Duncan Robinson. Unfortunately, I have bad news for you. I'm suggesting Duncan Robinson as a pickup this week later in the show, and Gordon Hayward played badly. I still think Gordon Hayward's a decent long-term pickup. If you're in like a 16-team league, I do not hate the idea of a flyer on him. But it didn't look good for him. Anyeka Holder drop. We talked a little bit about Okongwu earlier. I'll say I'm leaning with it being fine that you drop him, but what's your opinion, Kieran?
Yeah, he wasn't gonna be a league winner, anyways. Obviously double production. He was kind of like stealing more minutes away of Capella, so that would be nice. But I think he's probably a drop at this point.
Jay Sizzle wants to drop Walker Kessler for either Asar Thompson or Grant Williams in a 9-cat 10 team head to head. Do you have any insight, Kieran?
It depends. I mean, Grant Williams is reining it from deep right now. If you need help if you think you can win games, if you can get help in the 3-point category and that will help you win games, I think Grant Williams is definitely in the move there. We talked a little bit about Thompson may losing minutes when Isaiah Stewart comes back, so I feel like Grant Williams is the safer play. It's a little foreshadowing. I'm also highlighting him in my waiver wire pickups.
Well, let's get to those waiver wire pickups. Thank everybody for the questions. We'll hit some questions after our waiver wire section to close out the show. So stick around for that. As always, or for people who are new here, these waiver wire suggestions, they're all under 50% rostered on Yahoo. And at least one of our suggestions will always be under 25% rostered. But I know, Kieran, you have a list of like 4 or 5, a handful of guys who are still under 50% rostered that we continue to recommend to people. So why don't you list those off for us?
Yeah, so we got Trey Mann at 47% rostered, Keontae George at 45, Marvin Bagley at 49, and Gigi Jackson at 41%. These guys are all still below that 50% threshold that we're trying to hit in Yahoo leagues. And they've been mentioned in numerous articles on RotoWire. I've heard them in numerous podcasts. These guys have varying skill sets, but each player can make an impact in both points and category leagues. So I don't think there's like really much discrepancy there. If I had to pick one, I'm probably rolling with Gigi. He's been phenomenal recently, and I'm just kind of riding the hype train. Although I will add that Keontae George is like my breakout for next year. Like I think he's going to be awesome. The Jazz are kind of like bringing him along slowly this year, but he's going to be a cornerstone for them for a long time. I just don't know if that's going to happen in the next 6 weeks. Memphis. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I just remain shocked by Gigi Jackson's efficiency, considering how garbage he was in college.
Yeah, it's amazing. And Memphis has nothing to lose with rolling him out. We talked about Smart and Bane coming back, and it's like, why bring those guys back and risk injury when you can just see what Gigi has to offer, and Vince Williams, Zaire Williams, like they got a lot of young guys that can get minutes. The other caveats are Trey Mann could see a reduced role if LaMelo Ball comes back. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's just a possibility, which knocks him down a little bit for me. Bagley's double-double production is nice, and he has a safe floor with Gafford in Dallas now, but I just don't really want to trust any Wizards outside of Kyle Kuzma. So I'm probably rolling with Gigi out of that group of 4.
Okay, let's get into the meat and potatoes here. I'm going to go – my first suggestion is Trey Murphy of the New Orleans Pelicans, who's about 50% rostered. But I just want to highlight him, even though he's a little higher roster than some of these guys. Dyson Daniels quietly was playing like 20 minutes a game, like every single night for the Pelicans. Out for at least a month with a meniscus injury, probably more than a month. Daniels, he has missed the past 4 games, which the Pelicans played last night as well. They blew out the Rockets. In those past 4 games, Trey Murphy, 15 points per game on 44, 34, 78 shooting, 4 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 2 steals and 2 blocks in 30 minutes. The minutes are really encouraging. I think the efficiency will increase because he shot 48, 41, 91 last year. So I think that's gonna uptick. So I think Murphy could average like 16, 17 points a game for the rest of the season. Not to mention Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, both injury prone. Ingram sat last night. We know about Zion's injury history as well. So I think Murphy's probably rostered already in like 95% of competitive 12-team leagues. But if you're in a 10-teamer, he might be out there. And I think he is worth a pickup.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And one other thing I would add there is the Pelicans are hot right now. And when the Pelicans are playing well, they get open looks for shooters because they attack the paint so much. So I think Pelicans are hot and you ride Murphy while you can.
Who is your first waiver wire suggestion?
So outside of those top 4, I'm going to roll with another one of my favorite guys that I was really high on before the season. It hasn't quite happened yet. Maybe we're getting a little bit of that now. Rui Hachimura. He started 7 straight games. He had a career high 36-point performance before the All-Star break. He's averaging 16 points, 4.5 rebounds, nearly 2 assists, and 1.4 stocks when playing at least 30 minutes this season. He's played at least 30 minutes 12 times. He was a key part of the Lakers' run to the Western Conference Finals last year, which was why I was high on him coming into this season. He scored in double figures in 8 of his 16 appearances during that stretch, including 4 20-point outings. And then he just hasn't really gotten that type of run this year consistently. There's been some moments when LeBron sits or, someone sits and he gets extra minutes, but it just hasn't been consistent. Last night, he didn't have a great performance. I think he was the only starter that didn't score in double figures, but I really think he benefits from point guard LeBron. I think when LeBron is playing point guard, that opens up more opportunities, and LeBron really likes Hachimura, and Hachimura can be really efficient as that third or fourth scorer. It's a risky play, but I think it's a play that you should make if you're trying to push for a playoff spot. If you're in that you're right out of the playoffs and you think you can go, he has a really high ceiling, probably a decently low floor though, but he's a risky play that could pay off well in the end.
Yeah, I when Hachimura was in Washington, I was kind of a Hachimura hater. I was like, I don't really get it. But he was awesome in the playoffs last year. Really physical, great, got hot shooting. I agree. It's a considering he's a pretty 22% rostered for a guy who, look, he could explode and have 30 points in not 30 points in a week, 30 points in 2 games, or he could get you 50 points across a week or something like that. So that is a good option. My second suggestion, Duncan Robinson of the Miami Heat, 28% rostered. This is more of a week, a next week streamer rather than necessarily a long-term pickup, because what we have is Terry Rozier remains week to week. He did shed his brace recently, although I don't think he's been doing a ton of work. Josh Richardson still out with the shoulder injury, is going to be reevaluated next week, but he basically have no guards aside from Tyler Hero, who I think missed their most recent game. Jimmy Butler just came back. But the past 3 games for Duncan Robinson, 19 points. He's shooting 60% from 3. 3.3 assists, 2 rebounds, and 1 steal. Again, you want him for the threes. Again, mostly a streamer for next week. The Heat have 4 games. So throw him in for next week. Get your, 16 3-pointers. And then see what happens after that.
Totally agree. Robinson's been a very solid play at points during the season, and next week is definitely one of those where he has a lot of opportunities. My next guy, we already alluded to it a little bit. I'm going with Grant Williams. In 4 games with Charlotte, he's averaging nearly 19 points, 5.5 rebounds, 2 assists, and he's shooting 49, 93, 43 shooting splits during those games. Shooting regression overall is likely. He's never really pushed 50% for a full season, but he shot above 37% from deep in 4 straight seasons. So I don't think that the 3-point shooting is going to wane as long as the minutes are still there. His peripheral stats are sporadic, 10 and 8 rebound games, but then he just had 4 rebounds in the other 2. So that's kind of a little bit concerning. Doesn't get many assists, occasional steals. I think he's a safer play. I don't think that, the Hornets might start to tank, bench guys, but I don't think they're going to be prioritizing Leaky Black and Davis Bertans over a guy like Grant Williams. You want to give Williams as many minutes as you can to at least stay somewhat competitive. I think this is a great move for a team that's probably in the middle of the postseason right now, or they're in the middle of the postseason standings. You're probably going to make it, and you just are looking for a little bit of boost in that 3-point percentage if you're in a cat league for that championship run that you're looking to make.
Yeah, this is, I think, mostly a 3 streamer move, but he's being more aggressive on offense. Double-digit shot attempts in every game that he's played for Charlotte. His free throw rate is way up since getting to Charlotte. So yeah, I was critical at the very beginning of the year. I was like, you need to sell high on Grant Williams today, but now the role is expanded. So I'm not going to be as critical about him. Hornets have 4 games next week too.
Yep.
I don't know if you mentioned that. So stream them in for sure. My next player, Amen Thompson, Houston Rockets, 43% rostered. This may seem counterintuitive. It is a little bit, because Fred VanVleet just came back. But Thompson played 28 minutes off the bench last night. He had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks. I have to note, it was a blowout. The Rockets were decimated by the Pelicans. So, it's hard to say how many of those minutes were complete garbage. But what we do know is Ime Udoka, he's talked about this all the time. We know it from him as a coach. He loves energy guys, loves guys who play hard on defense. That is Amen Thompson. I also think there's a chance that Tari Eason just does not play again this season. The injury, his injury situation's getting weird. It's in weird zone with how dodgy they're being about it. But yeah, it's possible that Amen plays 19 minutes next game, completely on the table. But so keep that in mind before you pick him up. If you have Sunday waivers, see what happens. They play again. I think they play again on Sunday. So keep an eye and see what happens. But he could still be worth rostering the rest of the year, I think.
Absolutely. I like both of the Thompson brothers. I think Amon has a little bit higher of an upside right now, but I would be totally fine rostering him. So my last one, I'm also rolling with a rookie. He got his first career start last night, near double-double, 1 rebound away in 26 minutes. He's played over 20 minutes 5 times this season and averaged 10 points, 4.5 rebounds, and 1 steal. So nothing like too crazy. But I just want to stress the importance of a rookie starting the first game after the All-Star break. This isn't just like a one-off. This isn't like, we got some guys resting. This was a decision made after a week plus off, and they're like, we're going to give this kid run. Sensabaugh also got minutes off the bench, so they might just be having like a little bit of a youth movement. But I like Taylor Hendricks for this stretch run. He's probably available in nearly every league. It's a stash play. I don't know if you necessarily want to start him next week. You kind of add him for a couple waiver wire dollars and hope you get him. He plays 4 games in 3 of the final 4 weeks. So this guy you could get this guy off waivers right now, and he could be offering you double production during the fantasy playoffs. That's a really high upside, but there's also a really low floor. I'm rolling with the Jazz, making this concerted decision to start him and rolling with him over the next 6 weeks. I think you can get a lot of value there.
Yeah, for posterity, Utah kind of soft tanked at the deadline. They soft pulled the plug. It's like halfway out of the socket, but they owe their pick to OKC.
Yeah.
I still think that you're right in the sense that I think they will just prioritize development.
Yeah.
I don't think they care that much about making the plan or anything like that. So I don't think I would consider it like a tank.
Yeah.
But yes, I think they are going to throw Hendricks out there per 36, his points numbers aren't that amazing or anything, but it's 1.4 steals, 1.2 blocks, 2 threes. So if you're in a category league, it's a 3-and-D with some rebounds upside, and that is great stuff.
Absolutely.
So good suggestion there. My final waiver wire suggestion. We just can't quit him. TJ McConnell, 9% roster off the Indiana Pacers. I was actually shocked to see his roster rate this low. His role at the beginning of the year fluctuated a ton. Halliburton was in and out, Nembhard, blah, blah, blah. Halliburton's off his minutes limit now. So why am I suggesting TJ McConnell? He past 7 games off the bench for McConnell. 10 points on 59% from the field, 5.4 assists, 3.3 rebounds, and about a steal in, only 18 minutes. But 5 assists, a guy off the wire grabbing you 5 assists, 100% worth streaming on a 12-team roster with the Pacers on a 4-game week. And in 16-team leagues, he should probably just be straight up rostered for the rest of the season, because he could give you 20 assists in a week easily. There's not a lot of guys on the wire that are going to give you 20 assists on a 4-game week. So I just think you got to look at him as a streamer in shallower leagues and just add him in a deep league.
Absolutely. The Pacers score so many points and have so many players in the rotation that you can't go wrong. And he's just like a professional. He's so efficient when he's out there. He knows how to get to his spots. I love the pickup.
Okay, let's get to some final listener questions. Excuse me. Before we close the show out, Admiral, definitely recognize Admiral, listener to the show here. Thoughts on Michael Porter Jr.? Is he a hold in 12-team category leagues, or would you drop him for someone with multi-cat upside like Keontae George, Trey Mann, Paul Reed, etc. So basically, like, would you drop a low ceiling guy, for like a high ceiling guy? The risk versus reward play here.
That's interesting. I I love the Nuggets. I think they're in great position to make a push for this number 1 seed. I think Porter is going to be a big factor in that. Knocking down threes. I don't know if you're like he hasn't really struggled. Obviously, like you said, he's a one trick pony. He makes threes. Um,
Yeah.
I'm probably just rolling with Porter for now. I do like Trey Manning, Keontae George, Paul Reed. Obviously, there's production to be had while Embiid's out. I think I'm just rolling with Porter here though.
Yeah, I would definitely not drop him. I don't think I would drop him for Reed. I don't think I would drop him for Keontae. And even Trey Mann. I think Trey Mann has maybe has the highest upside of all these guys. But at the same time, I don't know what's going on with LaMelo.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I think Mann's worth picking up. I think he could have a role when LaMelo comes back, but hard to say. I would keep MPJ. Trayton wants to know, would you drop Gafford, Chris Middleton, or Amen Thompson for Asar Thompson? And this is in a points league. I'll mention this for Gafford. It's a decent enough news item. He came off the bench in the first game after the All-Star break, behind Derek Lively, and played 17 minutes, had 4 points, 5 rebounds. Just did not play that well compared to his previous games. So is that enough of a sample for you to be like, you know what? I don't know about Gafford.
I don't think it's enough of a sample for me to like straight up drop him. I think there's a lot of value there, getting boards, blocking shots, and getting lobs from Luka and Kyrie. But I am hesitant. This is a tough question, man.
It is.
Chris Middleton is probably the one that I'm going to be picking just because he literally hasn't like played consistent that 30-minute role this season. So there's just a lot of risk there. But this is tough. Gafford, you got to see how many more games does Washington have this week? Do they play again this weekend? I would assume so. I would like monitor that situation, see what Gafford does again. If it's another situation like this, I'd probably lean more towards Gafford because Middleton has the higher upside if he comes back soon. But if Gafford gets 20 to 25 minutes and it's more of a timeshare with Lively, then I'm probably rolling with dropping Middleton.
Yeah, I think broadly to answer this question, I don't think I would feel like compelled to drop any of these guys for Asar. Yeah. I don't think you have to. I don't think this is like a league winning move that you're potentially making. Van Dam wants to know Asar Thompson or Grant Williams for 10-team points league. We kind of talked about both of these guys. I think Asar probably has higher upside, but then Isaiah Stewart's coming back. It's just I think this is a pick your poison.
Yeah, Thompson definitely has the higher upside. It's just a matter of how many threes Grant Williams can make.
Who to drop to pick up Chris Paul? He has Mike Conley, Ayo Dosunmu, Trey Mann, or Walker Kessler. I don't think you have to drop any of these guys for Chris Paul. I don't know what kind of league you're in. Oh, yeah, so you had 9-cat. I'm looking farther. 9-cat, 10-team. I don't think you have to do it because Chris Paul basically all year was barely a top 100 player. And I don't think that's going to necessarily change when he comes back. And all of these guys that you listed, Conley, Dosunmu, Trey Mann, Walker Kessler, even though Kessler's minutes are down a little bit, they all can play at a top 100 level.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I mean, do you think it's worth a risk for like upside on Chris Paul?
There's no way I'm dropping Ayo or Trey Mann right now. Those guys are super high upside plays that probably in your starting lineup no matter what right now. I think Conley and Chris Paul are pretty even. So then Kessler falling out of the rotation a little bit, but like you said, top 100 upside if he is playing 20 minutes and getting those blocks. So definitely do not need to make this move at all. If I had to pick one, I would probably lean towards Kessler, but then that gives you a lot of point guards. I don't know how that helps your roster.
Matt wants to know, would you trade Kyrie for Towns head-to-head Yahoo points? By the way, I both of us playing a lot of competitive leagues that trades don't necessarily happen a lot, I would say. I love so many of these trade questions in the chat are amazing. Like guys are doing blockbusters left and right in leagues. And I'm not saying your league, Matt, is not like a high stakes serious league, but I love that so many people are active in the trade market.
And the high stakes, it makes you like you don't want to be the guy to mess up, and so
Right.
I feel like that always like plays into it a little bit. This trade is just amazing. I feel like we could do an entire hour-long podcast on how it would affect each team. I'm probably rolling with Kyrie right now. The Mavs are getting hot. They added a bunch of other weapons. One thing I would say about Dallas right now is, Derek Jones, Josh Green, PJ Washington, Lively, Gafford, all these guys, they added so much depth that I don't necessarily think it helps any of those depth guys, and it's only going to help Luka and Kyrie. I think those two are going to become more efficient. The offense is going to be seamless during the stretch run, and then it's just a matter if Jason Kidd will ruin it in the playoffs.
To me, this is close enough for just to note, Kyrie averages on the whole season about, I think, 3 or 4 more fantasy points per game than Towns, so it's pretty close. For me, this is a wash. Like I think it's just based on need. Like if you're thinner at center, if you're thinner at guard, do whatever side of the trade, makes sense for that. That's how I feel about that. James wants to know, should I drop Cam Whitmore, Jabari Walker, or Jordan Goodwin to activate Hartenstein? Need to drop one. First of all, yes, you should absolutely drop one of these guys to activate Hartenstein. Which one? Whitmore's kind of hot and cold. I don't know what his role is going to be when, because Fred VanVleet just came back. He's mostly only a points guy. Jabari Walker is like a category league guy who's like kind of showing some stuff. And Jordan Goodwin's like a 10-day contract. So which are you leaning any particular way on this?
I'm probably going reverse order. Goodwin would be my number 1 guy to drop. Jabari would be my number 2, and Whitmore would be my number 3. Like you said, Goodwin might not be on the team in a couple weeks. Jabari Walker fell out of the starting lineup. Silly season could bring him back into like top 100, like flirting with that maybe. And Cam Whitmore is fun. If you already are rostering him, you might as well just roster him for the stretch run, because there's some hope there for an insane breakout, but that's a long shot.
Ian wants to know, is Bruce Brown a drop in 14-team 9-cat leagues? Probably. I mean, it's just all year. It's just been like blah. It's just he hasn't given us that much. Even with Toronto now, he can't score double-digit points in like 3 consecutive games. Some games he'll give you no assists. Some games he'll give you 4. It's just I don't think he's gonna have any sort of like breakout, to end the year.
Oh man, so I didn't realize this. I'm looking at his box scores now. So end of January to like the beginning of February, in 3 games, he totaled 7 steals and 5 blocks in a 3-game stretch. Since then, he has 4 steals and no blocks. That's concerning. For a guy that probably assumed he was going to get traded to a contender, yeah, I'm probably dropping him. He
just gave up.
Yeah, like this is a guy that should be averaging at least a steal per game. That's a bad stretch. I'm totally fine dropping him. Side note, Grady Dick might be getting more playing time down the stretch. He hasn't really gotten an opportunity. Raptors need as much 3-point shooting as they can get. So yeah, I'm probably dropping Bruce Brown.
Yeah, and they traded for Abaji.
Yeah.
So that's an option for them too. And for some reason, I still am holding on to hope for Gary Trent.
Had a good game last night.
He has a good game once in a while. Jeffrey wants to know, is Day'Ron Sharper stash if Brooklyn starts silly season? Yes.
Always.
Capital Y, yes. Day'Ron Sharper is one of the best per minute fantasy producers around. Per minute, he ranks 74th in 8-cat. He also averages 1.3 fantasy points per minute, which is an elite number. This is absolutely yes from me.
I totally agree. I'm all in on Sharp. It's gonna come eventually. Hopefully, maybe.
Completely dominant rebounder, insane per 36 numbers. Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. All right, looks like we have about 3 more questions here. We'll hit those and then dip out. Views on Melton and Aldama. Melton's injury is concerning to me, but he will play tonight. Nick Nurse said he'll play Friday, so that's good. But it's a back. It's some sort of like hair. It's like a stress reaction or something from his back. So that always concerns me. I think he should be rostered because I think there is a chance he'll play like what he was seeing at 29 minutes a game, and he was ranked 87th and 8 cat. So I would say roster him. Do you have any takes on Aldama, who, Aldama has his good games and he has his bad games. Like, do you want to roster him? General thoughts?
Points league, I'm fine rostering Aldama. Category league, there's the shooting isn't that efficient. His assists have been pretty nice recently. Had a season high 7 assists in his last game, so that's a nice boost. But he hasn't scored in double figures in 3 games. Shooting efficiency is a concern. Hasn't had double-digit rebounds since January 2nd. I think Melton is more of a wait and see for me. Aldama is, you're not going to be getting anything more than what he's been doing. So if like Aldama is pretty stagnant, you know what you're getting, and Melton is a wait and see.
Okay. Luman, sorry if I mispronounced your name. Lillard and Vince Williams or Fox Mobley, 14 team 9 cat head to head. I don't know if you're asking whether you want to start these guys or whether this is a potential trade offer. Let me double check these. Let me double check for if it's for the upcoming week. The Bucks, how many games do the Bucks have here? 3 games. Grizzlies have 4 games. Kings have 3 games. Cavs have 4 games. So game count's essentially the same. Any strong thoughts on this, whether it's like a start sit question or if this was a trade question?
Yeah, if this was a start sit question, I'm probably rolling with Fox and Mobley. Trade, I would be curious. Fox is not a great free throw shooter. I have him in our stake league, and he's been a huge producer for me. But the free throws has been a major issue. He missed his first 2 free throws last night. And for a guy that goes to the free throw line a lot, that's not great. Mobley's been better at the free throw line. I think Fox and Mobley is the higher upside. I would just be worried about that free throw percentage. I think Lillard, I just want to put it out, I think Lillard's going to be just fine. I don't know if the All-Star break is going to like rejuvenate him or anything, but I think Lillard and the Bucks will be just fine.
Lamont says it is a trade question. I think I would rather be on the Fox Mobley side. Your concerns about his free throw percentage, Fox's free throw percentage, very legit. Vince Williams has been awesome, and Lillard I think Lillard can only play better. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But I think just the floor is higher on Fox Mobley because I just like, who knows with Vince Williams? Like, what if Bane and Smart do come back?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think I would rather have Fox Mobley, but I think it's close because Vince has been really good for a long time.
It's a lot closer than it should be. I'll say that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. 2 more questions, then we are officially out of here. Trading away Triple J and who is RW? You got this one for me, Kieran?
No, I do not.
For Siakam and Keontae, is this favorable? You're gonna have to tell us. You're gonna have to tell us who RW is. I'm sorry, I can't decipher this one.
Russell Westbrook, Robert Williams.
Robert Williams would be awesome. Royce O'Neal, Russell Westbrook. Okay, I guess
it's got to be Russell.
Trading away Triple J and Russell Westbrook for Siakam and Keontae. Is this favorable?
That's tough. Grizzlies silly season could get underway, but it's been silly season the entire season, and JJ is still playing. Siakam, like we said, the Pacers just score a bunch of points. He hasn't really like exploded yet, but consistent production. And I've already mentioned how much I like Keontae George, super high upside guy. I would be willing to roll the dice if you feel compelled to make a move. If you're sitting at the top of the standings and Jackson has been a baller for you, you don't need to move off of him. But I think that's that's all I got.
Yeah, I think I would lean Siakam and Keontae here. I think we agree that Keontae should be rostered in like 12-team leagues, almost all leagues, and I don't feel that way about Russell Westbrook. And Triple J and Siakam, I think, have similar trajectory or potential upside general fantasy value. So I would lean Siakam, Keontae. Final question here. I appreciate everyone who has asked us questions. It's been a fun pod. James wants to know, Royce O'Neal worth to pick up in a 14-team 12-cat league? I want to say yes, but what do you think, Kieran? I mean, he's played.
Yes, I'm absolutely rolling with him.
Okay.
Nurkic got benched last night. Drew Eubanks is a non-factor most of the time. The Suns are going to want to spread it out. They're going to want to shoot threes. Even if Bradley Beal comes back soon, Royce O'Neal is going to be seeing 25 to 30 minutes per game off the bench. He's going to get you some steals and defensive production. He is going to hit you some threes. I think he's definitely should probably be rostered in a 14-team league. I would be happy to have him. You're not going to get crazy points production or anything, but it's just going to be solid production across the board that can help you in numerous categories. So maybe if you're only in search of like one need and he doesn't fill that one need, then he might not be a move. But if you just are looking for a solid play to get production to replace an injured person, I'm absolutely making this move.
And this is actually our final question. Drello coming in hot. We gave him the red light warning. He came in hot. So I'm gonna he wants to know why Colin Sexton's minutes are low, relatively speaking. Yeah, I mean, let's just take over in February. In February, he's averaging 27 minutes a game. Now he's still giving you 21 points and 5 assists. So I assume, Jarello, you're like, hey, I have this guy on my roster. Why can't he play 36 minutes and give me 28 points a game? I think it's just because it's a combination of they want Sexton to buy in on both sides of the ball. And I don't think he has the energy on both sides of the ball to be like giving 35 minutes a game the way they want him to. So they're like, we'll just play him this. He'll go all out, and that'll be that.
I think that's totally fair. You would rather have 26, 27 minutes of Sexton at 100% as opposed to 20 minutes of him at 100% and 15 minutes of him at 80%. He really relies on that energy to make an impact across the board. So it is disappointing, but I feel like in the long run, it's better for his efficiency.
All right, that will officially wrap it up for us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you for all the questions. They are great as always. Once again, as you can see on the screen, if you're listening on YouTube, rotowire.com/pod for a free look behind our paywall. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the podcast, where you find the podcasts. And that will wrap it up for us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.